If you know, you know.
It's TCA in stereo.
From the city to the lake, we make a noise.
It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. Let's go. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. It's TCA summer sessions. Let's go. Let's go.
Away we go, everybody. Welcome inside a brand new edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast on the tail end of a midsummer long weekend. Matt Robinson with you, as always, in the remote Lakeside studio. Back, it was like 72 hours back in the city. That was enough. It was time to get on the road again. And happy to be joined today with a bunch of stuff to talk about by the host of the All 61 a CHL podcast, formerly known as All 60 a CHL podcast, perhaps soon to be All 62 a CHL podcast. He'll help me out with the branding. Steve McLean, what's going on, man?
It's so normal hearing your voice say the name of my show because for those who don't know, you are the voice of our intro, which we thank you for. So, hey, thanks for having me on, though. It's great. It's been a while since I've been on, and you got to find someone during these summer sessions while everyone else is out at the cottage and Steve's stuck in the hammer working. So screw it, let's go.
Well, this is it. We're on social media at Tall Can Audio. Give us a follow there. We will link to all of Steve's socials in the show notes at tallcanaudio.com or in whatever app you're hearing us right now. I will say we are recording this at around 1 o'clock on holiday Monday afternoon, which allows me to have a pint, but Steve's got to leave for work in about an hour, and for those who don't know, Steve's job will have the lives of hundreds of people in his hands, so he's not going to drink.
Drinking a protein shake.
This is it. This is probably the way to go. So I am going to have something here, though. This is a 4.2% lager from the Town Brewery in Whitby. This is called a Quick One. And I think that suits it. A 4.2% lager. Let's just have a quick one. And kind of suits the holiday Monday vibe here, man. How was your long weekend?
To get away from the smog and the grittiness of Hamilton, Ontario, I went down to Windsor, Ontario this weekend.
There.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a good time hanging out with the former co-host of OHL Fanboys, which I've noticed, anytime you have brought me up on the show and Rob happens to be there, he goes, Fanboys.
Still
and it's
to the Fanboys.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, our branding must have been good on that. That show hasn't been around in 7 years. Yeah, so, but my former co-host on that show, we were hanging out. We actually took in a couple games of the World Junior Summer Showcase, which was in Windsor this weekend, where kind of like a game of whose line is it anyway, the points were made up and it did not matter because they didn't keep standings. It was just some exhibition games to kind of get to see where the teams were at between Canada, USA, Finland, and Sweden. But had a good time and watched Canada get their asses handed to them.
Yeah, 7-2, I believe, in the last game there against the Americans. I like the whose line is it anyway reference, but I have a feeling those Canadian kids, when the World Juniors roll around, will remember the score and believe that the points may not have been made up. Was it as bad as it looked?
It was one of those games where it was definitely back and forth for the full first half, maybe even the first 2/3 of it, I would say. And then the States just kind of took over, late in the second period. Canada held a 2-1 lead at one point. Canada was the team putting more pucks on net and looking pretty good, but, I don't want to shit on him too much here, but Lucas Beckman not having his best outing in net, and that's a kid I put a lot of praise on. He's an Ottawa Senators prospect. He was great. Well, I know you got a lot of Ottawa listeners here. So, yes. And when we were going into the Memorial Cup this year, of course he was the goaltender for the Chicoutimi Saguenay, the QMJHL champs, and I said, that might be your goalie of the tournament, and he wasn't brutal by any sense, but in the end, he wasn't probably at his best, and he's been traded now to the Cape Breton Eagles, who were loading up this year, and but he was not at his best in this game. He got beat clean a lot. I found there was a couple, and towards the end of the game, at that point, you're thinking garbage time. But, at a point of the game where it was definitely up in the air who was going to win this thing, I thought he could have been a little bit better. Turnovers were, something they need to work on. This was not, their top end lineup in the sense, you had a lot of guys out scratched. Landon DuPont wasn't even there because he's at the under 17s that are
and
going on right now.
For people who are unfamiliar, like this is kind of like it's the World Junior Showcase, and it's a chance to get a look at some guys who will be at least in the running for a spot at the World Juniors this year. I want to ask you, and look, we'll get to a bunch of things here. I want to talk to you about the Blue Jays. I want to talk to you about pro hockey returning to Hamilton. There's a whole bunch of stuff we'll get to, but just on this topic, because it did just wrap up and you happen to be down there, I was a little surprised to see Jack Ivankovic on the roster at all, because it sort of seemed like by the end of World Juniors last year, he had grabbed that job. He's still eligible to have it this year. Was there any reason to bring him along? Did he play? Obviously, he didn't play that game. And that's sort of my point. Like, why would he? It seems like he will be the guy. Did he need to be at this thing?
Yeah. He probably didn't need to be, but it's one of those things that you ask. No, he did. Canada played 3 games this week. He did not play in any of them, though he was the dressed backup goalie for all of the games.
Okay.
When Beckman was kind of struggling at the end of the second period there, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was 5-2 after 2, and the States had scored in like the last 30 seconds of the period. So, and everyone assumed it's like, you know what? Throw Ivankovic out there for the third period. Beckman's having a rough day, and Beckman came back out for the third. So it was like, okay, it's one of those deals. I think it's just, they brought this is more. I think the battle is going to be between who's going to be the backup for Ivankovic, and then obviously once you get to the tournament, if he's not going well, then you could pivot. But right now, you have to assume Ivankovic is a lock. The 3 other goalies that they brought, I'm thinking they like those guys, and maybe it's just a battle of, okay, who's going to take 2 of these 3 remaining, 2 of the remaining spots of
That's
these
why I
3
wondered,
goalies.
like, why not just leave him home and let each of those other guys play a game or 2? And I don't know. It just struck me as odd, but
the other 3 guys all got to play. It's just Ivankovic was backing up every game. Hey, he's in the practices. He's getting his reps in. Maybe they just figure it's a good way to keep him fresh during the summer.
Sure. I should let the good listener know, like I said, you and I are going to talk a little baseball here in a second, and we'll give kind of some vibes around what the Blue Jays are doing right now. But on Wednesday afternoon, Andrew Stoughton will be here to clean up our mess. He will give the actual details and the actual smart takes on what the Blue Jays are up to right now, of course, from the batflip.ca, a regular around here. So look forward to that on Wednesday afternoon. And Steve, I know one of your favorite midsummer TCA guests will be back on Friday morning. Joshua O'Connor will return to the podcast. He's a beaut. He's a great guy. He's got a thumb on the CFL, a media guy as well, and we have a tendency when he is on the show to kind of end up all over the map, but I think that's okay in August. We sort of allow for that. So all that coming up on the podcast. If you missed it last week, we talked to Tom Harrington from the CBC about how Canada did both on the pitch and off hosting or being part of hosting the World Cup. And then we had Robert Munich on the podcast from the Nation Network. And I thought he had a really nice piece written about kind of the degrading or, degrading is maybe overstating it, but the experience of being an NHL hockey fan in Canada right now. And the Canadian hockey fan kind of starting to feel like a bit of an ATM to everything that's going on around the league and not getting a whole lot of love for it. So all of that is up now at tallcanaudio.com or wherever you're hearing us. But we might as well get into the Blue Jays here. That is what's topical. As I said, we're talking at about 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon. So the trade deadline for you and I is still about 5 hours away. By the time the good listener hears this, it's likely already passed. But for now, we have seen Kevin Gausman dealt to the Cubs for essentially an infield and an outfield Ernie Clement. Guys with a lot of speed, no power, and kind of slap hitters. It's not that those guys have no use, but...
hey, we all love Ernie Clement,
we
right?
love Ernie. So. I don't know how many of Ernie we need, but we love Ernie, the OG Ernie. But it sees Kevin Gausman going the other way. He had been pretty open and emotional in the weeks leading up to this that, he had loved his time in Toronto, that coming to Canada was the best decision of his life. And he had made one start about 2 weeks ago where his wife had made it to town, and a lot was made of him kind of sitting on the field after the game with her, and he did then start on the road, and he did end up getting one more at home with his kids there. He pitched well. They were able to take him out mid-inning to ensure that he got like a nice ovation from the fan base in the moment that he deserved. He is now off to the Cubs. Just in a general sense, man, your thoughts on the trading away of Kevin Gausman?
Yeah, and thank God Stoughton is coming on for your next episode, and he can give you actual baseball takes. I'm a fan that maybe keeping a close eye on things, but yeah, Gausman, it's tough to see. He's been such a workhorse for this team the last few years, and as everything has been kind of switched in and out, he's been Mr. Reliable, and never was going to be that number one guy. Though there were times where you thought he could be, but
sure.
But yeah, he was always your solid two. And it's tough to see him go, especially, I don't know if it's that inferiority complex that we have as Southern Ontarians compared to the rest of the sports world in North America. Toronto is obviously, it's been talked about for so long how Toronto is obviously one of the top markets in North America, but yet we see ourselves as that place that nobody wants to come to, particularly American players, and in such an American league like the MLB. So to see guys come here and embrace it so much and say how much they love it, and sometimes it could be lip service, but there are other times like in this situation where you go, man, he actually loves it here. And
I don't remember what the incident was. Maybe you will, Steve, but it was just brought back to my memory here over the last day or two online that somebody else had taken a run at Canada or had said something about the Blue, and Gausman came out and said, no, like being a Blue Jay, being in Canada, being in Toronto is incredible, right? And like you said, a lot of guys say what they have to say to the media in the scrums and whatever else just to make life easier. So happy to be here, happy to be a Blue Jay. And you could tell this guy meant it, right? And his kids had lived it, and yeah, it's tough to see a guy like that go, and clearly a glue guy in that clubhouse too, like universally loved, universally supported. Like I think of that guy coming in Game 7 of the ALCS last year, just trying to hold it down before in the half inning before Springer goes out and hits the game-winning, what would turn out to be the game-winning home run. And you're just like, this is a guy who will do, and I get it. Like lots of starters come in the playoffs out of the bull, but just running in and seeing Kevin Gausman, you're like, this is a guy that'll do whatever it takes. He's happy to do it. He's bringing some energy to this with the way he's coming in. Like, I don't know, man. There's just something about.
I never felt uncomfortable. When he's starting a game or in the playoffs last year, when it's like Gausman's coming out of the bullpen for this, you're like, we're okay cool with this. We're okay.
Yeah.
And we thought that about Jeff Hoffman, and then it went not okay. But,
all right.
I digress. Sorry, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help. And you know what? I'm actually one of the guys who say, like, people go, Jeff Hoffman lost you a World Series, and I was like, I guess in that moment, yes, but there were about 10 moments where we lost the World Series.
100%.
So, right? Like over the course of 2 games.
I'll never ever forget, like, a ball is lodged under the wall and that guy just gets to wave off our run. Like, are you kidding? Like, they're silly. Anyway, let's not do this to ourselves.
Puts his hand up like he's waiting for the bus. I've seen that look a lot of times. I'm just like, I'm not picking you up, dude. This is not going to turn into the today. 11 months or 10 months later, it still hurts. But no, Gausman was that guy you were not worried about at any point, and he loved this city. It's tough to see him go. And, I'm not going to claim to know everything about all the prospects, but from what I've seen, most people thinking this is an underwhelming return.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain, my mom, you've heard this story so many times. My mom, not a sports person at all. She got so into the World Series run last year. And it was great to see. And she's starting to learn all the player names and even some from other teams and stuff. But of course, some of the subtleties of sports. So she's asking me, like, why does Gausman have to be traded? And I explain, well, he's a free agent at the end of the year. And she kind of asked me a question that had me baffled, and I didn't have a good answer for her. She said, well, why couldn't we just re-sign him at the end of the year? And I say, well, there's no guarantee you re-sign him, but he loves the city. Why wouldn't he re-sign? And I kind of go, Yeah, why is there a good? I honestly don't know of a good answer. At least before today's trade that we'll get to here in a second,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But before that, it's like, well, I know he's getting up there in age. Maybe the Jays, this is their way of kind of getting out of it and not having to re-sign him. And hey, he's 36 now. Even though there's obviously still some gas left in that tank, but that's kind of my thing. I remember being a kid and being a Leafs fan. Before I jumped off that ship and got to the OHL, but
I'm clinging to it all the way to the bottom of the ocean, man.
Right? Yeah. I respect, dude. I get it. But I hadn't discovered the OHL yet, and
Sure.
those late '90s, early 2000s runs, and Glenn Wesley being part of the 2002 trade deadline for Toronto, and then instantly re-signing with Carolina in the summer. And I thought to myself, why doesn't every other team do that, and why can't we do that with Gosman? But
that is
obviously
on the
things
table,
get a
I
bit
think,
more muddy
right?
now.
Especially, like you said, with how much he loves it. Now, we do hear this in a bunch of sports, right? Like, well, you could always talk to him again in the offseason. It rarely happens, but Glenn Wesley, man, what a pull on a guy that did turn around and go right back home.
Right?
So it can happen, and it wouldn't shock me in this case, like if you went back to him this November or what and said, I got like 2 years for you. It's going to be a little bit less because you are 35 years old and whatever else. But I think in a case like this where the Blue Jays are where they are, it is one of those subtleties. It's one of those nasty little pieces of the sports business that says, but for right now, like we got to get something for you because it's not so much just that his contract is expiring. We are bad and we didn't expect to be bad. And
exactly.
You're a part of that. You're not the biggest part of it. You're not the only part of it, but you're a part of it. And we have to find ways to dig out. And you're one of those pieces of currency we can spend right now. And get a couple more Ernie Clements, I guess, in the door. So,
well, and I was going to say, the reason, we all know why he's going.
Right.
He has that trade value more so than a lot of the guys on this roster who doesn't have term.
Like Scherzer,
and
who knows?
Yeah,
Bieber,
like someone's
who knows? Like
again, talking to my mom about it, she's like, "Are we not trading Little and Hoffman?" And I said, "Well, I mean, we could, but who's going to?" We're not getting what we would get for
if by
Gosman.
6 o'clock Hoffman has scarred us based on what happened last November. I think it was not the night after Thanksgiving.
November 1st.
After
it was
Halloween.
November 1st. So quick side story. I know I do this a lot, but I was watching. I actually not thinking that's like, oh, the Jays aren't going to be playing on November 1st this year. Yeah,
right.
I'm going to buy those Habs tickets.
Oh,
and. I was at a Habs game in Montreal against the Ottawa Senators. First time I ever had lower bowl tickets at the Bell Center. It was amazing to watch. And I actually went to the game. I think it's the only time you could ever get away with this. I went to a game in Montreal on a Saturday night, fully decked in Toronto blue. I had my Jays hat, I had my Barger jersey on, and I had an earpiece in listening to the Fan 590 as the game was going on. Now, luckily, the Jays game, I think, was still in about the 6th inning.
Sure,
When the Habs game finished. We finished watching the game on the street outside. So very memorable for, as it would be for anyone.
Yeah.
But that's a moment
I do think it's possible that they could circle back and talk to him. I don't know how likely it is. I do also wonder just emotionally what it does to a guy like you kind of hurt me here a little bit, right? You ship me out. So,
we'll
see.
To mention that you run the risk he could, as much as he loves Toronto, he could go to Chicago and be like, wow,
playing
this is
at Wrigley
awesome.
Field, like this is incredible.
Yeah.
This team's pretty good. Pete Crow Armstrong.
Let's do this some more.
Yeah, I could see that as well. And I think as often as not, that's what ends up happening. To lock yourself in, to give everything you can to your new team, you almost have no choice but to turn the page. And then that sort of becomes your new resting heart rate. So we'll see.
Exactly.
I wouldn't rule it out necessarily. The other deal that we have seen as we sit here right now did see the Blue Jays bringing in, quite frankly, a very suitable Kevin Gosman replacement in Jose Soriano from the Angels, a guy who in the 2 years before this was in like the 90th, 93rd percentile of ground balls, like leaning on his sinker, super elite. I don't know, and I've said this 100 different times before, I don't know what the hell the Angels are doing, but this year they allowed him to go away from that. That has allowed his walks to get out of control a little bit. he's still got a ton of stuff, only 27 years old, under contractual control for another 2 years after this one. So that's the reason the Jays would be willing to go out and do this right now. It's not so much for this year, although it does sort of indicate they haven't fully given up, but they'll have him through 27 and 28. But a really nice piece, capable of being a number 2, depending on which reporters you're reading. Some people will say, like, perhaps a dueling ace if Pete Walker can work his magic, right there with Cease. I don't know a ton about the guy other than the same thing that everybody else is repeating. The big piece going back, there was 3 pieces going back. The big one is Arjun Namala, the number 2 prospect in the Blue Jays system, a shortstop that a lot of people have been keeping an eye on. He was at Double-A. I was surprised that they were willing to do this in a year where they're selling. You don't often buy using a piece quite this high, but they're the number 1 prospect in their system is also a shortstop coming up right behind him in JoJo Parker. So I'm sure that was part of the equation. And to just go and get this guy right now is a tidy piece of business. I don't love...
For everyone kind of shitting on the return for the Gausman trade, this happens 24 hours later and you go, all right, I like this. That kind of softens the blow, right? You get,
this is it.
You get a, and
they're different pitchers,
about 10 years younger.
Yes, and you get a Gausman quality guy back with 2 extra years of control.
Exactly. How can you hate on that? And as you said, maybe giving up your number 2 prospect in the system isn't ideal when you're not, you expect to give up that type of guy when you're making the big swing as you're at the top of the standings and like last year, right?
When you're going for it, right.
But at the same time, as you said, when your number 1 prospect is already playing that same position, you've got a little bit more leeway there, though. So, I don't hate this trade at all. I love it.
Well, clearly, it indicates they want to contend again next year. They are not up, assuming there is a next year, which is a whole other...
I was just about to say that. And I mean, another trade this weekend that had everyone going, yep, we're headed right for a lockout
this is
next year.
Yeah, for anyone who missed it,
I was actually with a Tigers
Skubal,
fan.
Yeah, off to the Dodgers from the Tigers, which is just pouring gasoline on that fire that's about to be ignite here in the offseason. I don't hate it.
I don't want to turn things too political, but I think the best meme I saw this weekend was an old dilapidated house that had a Trump flag, it had a Confederate flag, it had a Nazi flag, and then someone put in a LA Dodgers flag. That gave me a good laugh.
But all right. Yeah. I don't hate it. But I don't hate the trade either. I think it says we're pretty sure we're down and out this year, but we don't plan to stay there. And this is a big piece. And look, the Dodgers, you've got me all flustered on the Dodgers. They're across town counterparts in the Angels. Look, they're bad for a reason. They don't develop well. They don't coach well. They don't embrace analytics, which isn't the whole thing. But it didn't take long for me to find 3 different people at Fangraphs and whatever, who cover this stuff much smarter than I do, who were able to look at him and go, that guy's going to get to the Jays. They're going to tell him to go back to leaning on the sinker. And all of a sudden, you're going to have people hitting ground balls right at Jimenez. And think what you want about that guy. He can at least defend.
It was the same thing when Cease came in, right? They go, look at the defense he had to play with last year, and now look at the defense he has now in Toronto, and things should be shooting right up. And I think I saw, I can't remember who posted it, but
run value too, he's leaving what the catchers will do for you in terms of stealing runs was a -13, and in Toronto it's a +12. So
that's a hell of a swing right there,
big time.
And one of the reporters yesterday basically saying that, they see this almost like the same type of a project that Dylan Cease was, and hell, that worked out pretty damn good.
Seems to be going well. Well worth the pennies at this point.
And again, I don't want to. I don't mean to shit on the Leafs, but there's just a great comparison. You tell them, you tell the guy, no, don't do. We want you to do this instead of the thing that makes you great. It really makes me think of Austin Matthews in Toronto, where it's like, man, you're technically the best goal scorer in the NHL right now, and why don't we do less of that and do some more defense? And it's just yes, defense is good.
How about
but
you go be Mike Richards? Really? No.
Or maybe we could let other guys do that, you can keep scoring 60 goals, right? Like, so same thing here. It's just like, okay, what are you trying to, screwing up what works? Again, I don't claim to know all the ins and outs of the technicalities of baseball, but from afar, it was like, why would you have a guy go away from what works?
This is it. And you and I will leave it there. We'll let Stoughton explain the intricacies to both of us here a little bit later in the week. Yeah. But one of the things that I did want to talk to you about was the arrival of pro hockey back to Hamilton. And I say back because they have had professional hockey before. The AHL has been there before. But the PWHL is rolling in. At the same time, we find out that the AHL is coming back to town. It'll be the affiliate of the New York Islanders. Interestingly enough, timing-wise, they just announced here over the last 24 hours that Evan Gould has been hired as their new assistant GM for the Islanders, so will be general manager of the AHL's Hamilton Hammers. I hate that name. Yeah, not
we
a good
all do.
name. Okay.
We all do.
In a general sense, man, I'm curious, and we can kind of take a look at both leagues or both teams coming back in here. But in a general sense, is this market ready for this? They're going from having kind of no professional hockey for the last little while to two teams at once.
Best answer, the short version I would say is I don't know. If you were only bringing in one, I would say yes. But at the same time, the two are they're both pro hockey, but they're such different versions of hockey. And I can tell you from my experience, my personal opinion, I am way, way more excited about the PWHL coming to town than the AHL. Now, I am not a Hamilton native, my whole life. I had a brief cup of coffee here back around 2010, and now I've been living here again for the last 5 years, and I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon. Kind of like you in Ottawa, this is becoming my adopted hometown.
This is it.
Pensions help with that, but Hamilton over the years, it's been a weird thing. They built Copps Coliseum back in the mid '80s, and obviously that was to get an NHL team. And
the
people
Senators
think of it as
stole it from them.
Yeah, basically. People think of it as a pipe dream now, but I would say, like, in the 80s, and you build a building like that, it was a real possibility.
Sure.
And Hamilton probably should have been on the table. And you wonder if they had gotten a team back at the end of the 80s, would they have been as part of the mass exodus with the Nordiques and the Jets in the mid-90s, or would they have, hung in there like the Oilers and still been around today?
Right.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
But the problem was Copps, it was like one of those rinks where they kind of built it right at the end of a certain period of time where the rinks were changing. 3 years after Copps was put up, the Palace of Auburn Hills was built just outside Detroit, and that one was a game changer. That was the first arena where you saw the suites get moved and do like kind of the double from the very top of the building to more the center of the building, and you get the double decker thing going on, and it changed the game. And Hamilton was left in the dust. And
very similar in that regard to the Dome, right? Like, we're kind of doing this thing, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be innovative, and it's going to be brand spanking new. And then, like, the next year, Baltimore opens up. You're like, oh, like, we're going to go back and do the classic, good-looking, fun-to-be-outside ballpark thing.
The thing we just built is now suddenly not the thing anymore.
Immediately out of date, yeah.
It's like jumping on a 6-7 meme right now, right? It's like, it's had its day, I think. But, so Hamilton ended up getting their AHL teams, and they did fairly well for themselves over the years. Of course, the Hamilton Bulldogs eventually came in the mid-'90s. They built themselves a fantastic, recognizable brand in this city. They switched from the Oilers farm team to Montreal. And it was always the thing, when the Marlies were in town, the crowd was mostly pro-Marlies. But if you can't have a Toronto or Buffalo affiliate, I didn't think Montreal was a bad one to have, because you still got tons of Habs fans. They're everywhere.
Subban
just like
rolling through there, Price rolling through there, right? Like,
exactly. They won the Calder Cup with Carey Price as their goalie in 2007.
Yeah.
And, the night they won the Calder Cup, that arena was sold right out to the rafters. And we're talking about an arena that hosts 16,000, 17,000 people. So, but, the more day to day, the AHL crowds weren't the best. They weren't terrible, but in a building that big, it just a crowd of 5,000 people doesn't look good. The whole deal when the Bulldogs left but also stayed, it became an AHL team. For those who don't know, the Belleville Bulls, the OHL, they were getting sold around the same time that the Habs were moving their affiliate out of Hamilton. So Michael Andlauer, he jumped on the Belleville Bulls, moved them to Hamilton. They retained all the same branding and info. Just we're getting an OHL roster now.
Junior hockey now instead of pro. Yeah.
And the team did phenomenally well for the 7 years that they were in Hamilton. They won 2 OHL championships, went to a Memorial Cup championship game, the semifinal, and their other Memorial Cup appearance. And they built themselves something great with Andlauer and Staios running. Basically the Ottawa Senators now is what the Hamilton Bulldogs were, and the crowds were pretty good. Again, for OHL hockey, I thought they did great. And they weren't the London Knights putting 9,000 in every night, but they were certainly right there. And when they were winning OHL titles, they were filling the building again. I think for Game 7 of the 2022 final against Windsor, there was 12,000 people there. Wow. It was fantastic. And then, of course, the city of Hamilton, and I have to watch my words carefully here, being an employee, but, the city of Hamilton, long story short, Michael Andlauer wanted to build a new building up on the mountain right beside the mall that was going to be a little bit more to the size of the hockey teams that were playing in the city. Maybe like a 10,000, 8,000 seat building. The city said no, and he was willing to finance half of it.
Starting to touch a nerve for people listening in Ottawa about arena proper sizing. Yeah,
exactly. And I've been following that story, of course, as well. But Andlauer said he was willing to put up half the money for that, which you could have the debate all day about whether any public money should go into this building, but usually that's a better deal than most cities get most of the time.
That's right.
City of Hamilton said no, and to be fair, it's looking like it was the right call for them in the sense of, you had the group that did come in, and they said, we're going to renovate Copps Coliseum, now named TD Coliseum, but unfortunately, they had to kick it. It was such a comprehensive renovation, they had to kick everyone out for 2 years, including the Bulldogs, who moved to Hamilton, or moved to Brantford, I should say. Did I say Brampton? Oh, Lord. That's how they moved to Brantford, and just down the road, and they have found a fantastic home there, while they went from the 17,000-seat Copps Coliseum to a 3,000-seat Brantford Civic Center.
It's a barn.
It is a barn, but they did what they could with it. Yeah. It's a fantastic barn to watch a game in, and now they've already signed a new, I think 40-year lease in the city of Brantford.
Oh,
They're
wow.
staying. The new arena is already under construction. They've said we want to host the 2030 Memorial Cup. So things are great, and it's all working out for the Bulldogs in the end. And Lauer sold the team a little over a year ago to the Hyman family, and things are looking great for the Bulldogs. But in the city of Hamilton, you had this Coliseum get redone. It's now named TD Coliseum. It just opened up.
Basically a brand new building with no tenants.
Kind of. Well, and people were... You knew they were going to have to bring in a sports tenant at some point. And the Toronto Rock, while they did leave temporarily, they did say that they were always going to come back. Yeah. So you knew the Rock were coming back, but that's not a huge, long schedule. You need that hockey or a basketball team that's going to fill your building 30-plus nights a year. And but when the renovation was happening, they were talking about how we're gearing this more towards music and entertainment. And you think, I wonder if this will work for sports. But, when the PWHL had their takeover game here, you knew that hockey was coming in some form or another, and I always wanted it to be the PWHL. And when it was announced that the AHL was coming, I thought that made sense, but I'm not so sure how it's going to work out, being a New York Islanders farm team. The only Islanders fans are you get a lot of kids who gravitate towards winning teams. So unfortunately, all those kids who watch the Islanders in their dynasty years are in their 60s now. So you don't have too many. Hey, you got Matthew Schaefer, and maybe the kids will start, but he ain't playing for the Hamilton Hammers. So
no.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm not particularly jazzed about the AHL team. The logo and the colors. Well, the colors, Islanders, that makes sense. But the logo and the name, that might have been a little bit of a miss.
Is it the branding, or is look? I understand it's probably a little bit of everything, But the
Yeah.
PWHL is the top of what it is, right? Like, it is the number one league for women's hockey now in the world. And the AHL is great hockey. At worst, it's the third best league in the world, right? And it's probably the second best. So it's still great men's hockey, but there is kind of this feel, especially in Canada, that's like, and it's not that it can't work. The Marlies are a thing. Belleville's doing fine. Abbotsford is doing fine. Laval is doing fine. But like Laval is tied to the Habs. It like you know these are the Habs kids. The Marlies is very much the same way. I think your point here about the Hammers being tied to the Islanders is kind of like, yeah, so when they leave here, how much do I really give a shit about them? Whereas the PWHL is the top of what it is, and there's still few enough teams that there's star power all over the place. I think your original franchises are pretty pissed about how the expansion process played out. The expansion teams, fan bases themselves should be pretty pleased, right? You've got some big names right off the hop.
I was going to say, as a Hamilton PWHL fan, because I do have, it's hard to call yourself a fan of a team that hasn't actually played a single game yet.
Of course.
But I put down for 2 season tickets. I'm waiting for that info to come out, but I've got my deposits in. I fully plan on buying a pair of seats to this because I want to be there night in, night out for this team and cheer them on and be a part of it. But, with the AHL, I've always said, being an OHL fan for years, and of course when the AHL was originally here, there was a moment where I was like, wonder if I should make like the Bulldogs my AHL team. Right. The one thing that I personally can never get on board with the AHL. It is great hockey to watch. I go to random AHL games. I've been to about half the arenas in their league. The problem is on a day-to-day basis is your team is kind of not they're not in control of their own destiny to a point. I've always had the analogy of your team, it could be March, you're fighting for a division title, but your NHL parent club, who's 13th in the Eastern Conference, they just had a few injuries and now they're
we need your number one players.
to limp across the finish line for and no real reason. It's great for that player, and don't get me wrong, but the team is left. Yeah, exactly. And hey, that he wants to be in the NHL, of course, right? Yep. Even if it is on a last place team or whatever. But as a fan of the AHL team, you kind of go, well, now we just got screwed. We just lost our best player, and we're neck and neck here for a division, or you're in the playoffs, what have you. So. It kind of feels like you're not in control of your own destiny, whereas with the other leagues you are. That's kind of something that I've always thought about. And there are a lot of AHL cities with loyal fan bases. 100%. It works, and. But I'm just wondering how it's going to work with Hamilton
to arrive at the same time.
Exactly,
is a big jump. It's a big ask for a lot of ticket buyers, and I envision, like you said. You laid down your money for season. Like a lot of hockey fans would have had to make a decision, right? Like very few people can afford to suddenly buy season tickets for both. And Hamilton's a big city. It's not a huge city. So to have them both roll into town at the same time is suddenly a big jump.
And it's a blue-collar city, too, right? Like, this is not exactly a place... I don't want to say, there are certainly people who can afford to go to hockey in Hamilton. Sure. And I'm already a season ticket holder with the Guelph Storm, which we're getting set for a big season that we're all excited about, too. So I've got 2 hockey teams that I'm, like, really excited about right now for different reasons.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's tough. And the Hamilton Hammers, they just put out their season ticket prices this last week, and I think the cheapest season ticket is like pushing $900.
Right.
Whereas I think I saw Marlies fans the Marlies play in a smaller building, and you would think MLSE run, that's going to be through the roof, and I think that you can get season tickets there for like $200 less than
you posted this on Twitter. I think the comparison across a couple different things here. It was
well,
jarring.
And I went with the Canadian teams because we don't need to get into price differences and between countries.
Currencies,
but I went through and looked at the 7 Canadian franchises in the AHL and looked them up and Hamilton was among. I think Hamilton. Or actually, Calgary had the cheapest in the door, or the most expensive, in the door price.
The Wranglers.
It's like. Yeah, but their deal is it's the same price for every seat. It's like $900, and I don't have the number in front of me, but it was over $900 to sit anywhere. Whereas in Hamilton, I think it's like $875 for the cheapest seat, but then they go up to as high as $2,200 for center ice or the glass, which that's the greatest scam I think ever thought up of making the seats, that front 2 rows on the glass, the most expensive seats. I'm not paying for them. That's
Real
fine.
hockey
Those are the
fans know
worst
that
seats.
is not the best seat. It is fun if you want to go and do it once.
Yeah.
But it is not the best seat in the house.
No, if you're going to do it, get one in the corner.
Yep.
Then at least you could see the whole ice surface, but don't do it on the side. It's awful. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this works. The AHL is going to have the benefit of kicking off first. You know, we've got a schedule, or I don't know if the schedule's not out yet. I know they have posted when their home opener is going to be. They get going the same time as the NHL. They're going to be going in October. They're theoretically going to have about a 2-month head start on PWHL here, who I still don't know how much I'm paying for season tickets. I don't have a schedule. It's one of the kind of frustrating things about the PWHL.
League-wide, they do a lot of stuff last minute. Here's the schedule. Here's this will be
like 3 weeks beforehand, and
a lot of
you sit here and think, you go, well, we have 12 teams now instead of 8. That's a giant jump in one season. Are we expanding the schedule? Are we going from 30 to 35 games?
How many teams are making the playoffs?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of question marks still there with the PWHL. It's amazing to me, and I think, to be fair, there isn't one for the Hammers yet, but it's like I can't go down to the rink to a team store yet and buy any merch or anything like that. I know there's no logo yet. There'll be one coming. Hey, that's another question. What's our logo going to be? I know we're not going to probably have them on the jerseys.
Are these new teams doing what everybody else did, going a year where you're just Hamilton, diagonally across and there'll be colors and there'll be like a color scheme and everything like that. But the original 6 didn't have a name for year 1, and
well, Seattle and Vancouver, for those who don't remember, they did have a name and a logo. They didn't have them on the jerseys.
Well, they didn't have
branding.
Yes.
Yeah, they went into the season being known as the Vancouver Golden Eyes.
Awesome.
Well, I love that myself. And the one team in the league that they are the main tenant, so it's their logo at center ice.
Right,
it's just fantastic. And that's another question someone asked me the other day. It's like, who gets top billing at TD Coliseum now? And I said, if the Hammers were the team that had been here from the start, then you would assume that it's their logo at center ice. But you gotta. I'm hoping they at least go like a 50-50 thing here. Someone was telling me the other day who was just kind of very dismissive of the women's hockey deal. He's just like, well, it's the AHL. Screw that other team. I said, nah. The PWHL is getting pretty popular.
Well, this is it. And you can make the opposite argument. One's a B league and one's an A league. It's
exactly that was one of the arguments we threw out there. So yeah, I if it was up to me, I think you kind of let's do like the double thing, like one, have both their logos at center ice, like they used to when the Leafs would put one way and one the other way.
That's right. Yeah.
Do that with these two teams and whatnot. Have the branding. They have 2 different color schemes, which I'm happy. Neither one of them went with just the black and yellow because you have to, because it's Hamilton, because it's Pittsburgh, Canadian
Steeler
Pittsburgh
related. Yeah.
Right. Let's not do that. And I don't know if that would have been my first choice for the Hamilton colors, but at the same time, I don't dislike them. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of name they can come up with and the branding. I think it's fair to say it's not just a personal opinion of mine. It's an opinion of a lot of people that they missed the mark with the Hammers here. So we'll see what happens with the PWHL team and how that goes.
It's one of those things like any other sports name we'll all get used to it and it'll just be what it is. And yet, this was the least creative, the
logo looks kind of AI,
right?
It's just And look, I as a person who lives in Hamilton, I don't mind that nickname for the city, the Hammer.
Fine.
That's fine. I like it. But to call your hockey team the Hammers,
well, when the PWHL rolled into Toronto, if they'd just gone the Toronto Big Smoke, you're like, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Did anybody give this more than 3 minutes thought?
I'm looking forward to it regardless. Whatever they end up being called, whatever their logo is, I'll be there. Let's buy a jersey. Let's go. I think I might wait a year or two before getting into the name on the back
Good
business
call.
because I know your story
There's
about
some
that.
churn for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And look, there's a lot of players on this roster already. And you know, I thank you for bringing a Hamilton fan on because we poached the hell out of your guys the Charge
happy
this
to
summer.
have helped with that.
That's why I'm like, I'm ready. A friend of mine has been a Victoire fan because she's like, well, she didn't have a team in her area down in Windsor, so she goes, I'm going to be a Victoire fan. And now it's like, oh, they have Detroit right there. Shit.
Yep.
But she's kind of got herself attached to the Victoire.
Of course, yeah.
Championships do that. So,
Yep.
it's great to see everyone getting into it. I hope the momentum stays kept up. The takeover game here in Hamilton was a sellout. I don't anticipate them being able to sell out every game, but if we can keep that lower bowl fairly full most of the time, I'll be very impressed because the lower bowl in Hamilton seats about 8,000 or 9,000 people. So
that would be a fantastic outcome for the PWHL in year one in Hamilton.
Absolutely.
They're trying to grab people up there. So.
And, maybe is that, shooting for the stars a bit much? Maybe not. We'll see. It's kind of curious to see how like the Charge will do in Canada next season.
Yep.
So there's a lot of question marks. I hope that in the end, this league had small aspirations to start. We saw that in Toronto. It's like, okay, we're going to play at Maple Leaf Gardens. And then you get like 3 games in and you're like, yeah, this ain't going to work. We need something way bigger. Obviously, you're never going to need anything bigger in Hamilton, but let's hope that, it doesn't turn out like a lot of the teams here in the past where it's like, yeah, we've got 6,000 people here, but the atmosphere is a dud because, it's just such a big venue that nothing, it doesn't like
work. You said,
but
that'll be a concern for the Charge moving out to it. It was a concern for the Minnesota Frost. Like, all you can do is do the best you can, and if you can average 5 or 6, yeah, it sucks. It's in a 20,000 seat building, but it was no different than the days where when the Jays were dog shit in a 50,000 seat building. And, they're drawing 15,000. And there are other major league teams out there that would be fine drawing 15 or, like, not fine, but not as bummed. It's just in this mausoleum, it gives off a different vibe. I want to take you.
There's a lot of MLB teams that half the season, half their games, it's a half empty venue, and that's just kind of seen as normal. We're lucky now in Toronto, even though the team is not good this year. That dome is packed every night,
100%.
so it's great to see. And one thing I wanted to last touch on about the Coliseum too, while the sports hasn't fully returned yet, though the Toronto Rock actually did return this past season, got the building a championship year 1 there.
Yeah.
But with hockey coming back, the renovation has gone fantastically well. No taxpayer money had to go into it. The Oakview group footed that bill, and now some of the renovations. It's kind of like you watch the videos and stuff that they did for it, and you're kind of sitting there as a regular Joe going, this looks like they did a lot of stuff for the rich people here. It's like, check out these awesome new suites that you'll never get to use unless you get invited from someone who works for a company. But
right.
it's kind of funny. This past week or 2 weeks ago, a report came out that apparently in the last year, the TD Coliseum is Canada's second highest grossing arena, in the whole country.
Get the fuck
and that's kind of
here.
crazy. Yeah, like that was like, what? Now, I don't know what criteria, if that's like all arenas, period.
Sure, yeah, you can skew some numbers and stuff, but I have seen
Right.
more and more concerts even skipping Toronto and dropping into Hamilton now that it's modern. It's
been huge,
and the cost to rent the ACC is insane. I'm sure it's not quite as bad out in Hamilton. So
it's probably not, and you still have people that can come in from Toronto on the GO train, which is usually you're thinking the opposite. I, as a Jays fan, use the GO train to get to Toronto to go to the games. So and I've seen people go, hey, I don't have to buy Scepter's tickets now. I can come in and do Hamilton. I don't have to take that train ride in. But yeah, the concerts in Hamilton have just absolutely exploded. I think the report was pre-renovation, the building was using the upper bowl maybe like it was less than 10 times in a whole year.
Right.
And now it's like every week there's a huge concert. Paul McCartney opened the building up last November.
it's a pretty good name.
Yeah, whatever.
bad.
I think he was in. I mean, he's only a solo act, but I think he was in a bigger band at one point in his life. So, but yeah, like every week, you
mean
2
Wings?
concerts a week. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love Wings. Yeah, like it's been huge for Hamilton. It makes it, and the arena shines now with all the renovations and the new lights and everything. You're downtown, and it makes it sparkle just a little bit more. And I know they're trying to do more with the area to make it more of a nice place to take the family out and for the evening. And the funny thing I always read though with the read into when they say, hey, we're the second highest grossing arena in Canada, it kind of reminds me of when WWE comes out there and right to their fans go, guess what, everyone, we set our gate attendance record tonight, and everyone
you paid
cheers
more
like
than
yay.
anyone else has ever paid.
Like, I understand when they
Yeah.
go out there and say, hey, we have 70,000 people
Right,
here
when you
tonight,
can
and
say
everyone
we
goes,
set
yeah,
an
we're part of
attendance
that.
record, that's
Yeah.
exciting. We set a new gate revenue. We emptied your pockets more than any
Yeah.
other pockets we've ever emptied. It's
So,
not quite as much fun.
No, so same deal with Hamilton here. It's like, yeah, they did make the arena more appealing for rich people, and more people are spending money. But yeah, regardless, it is great. The rink is being used a hell of a lot more now. It looks a lot better. Hopefully it makes Hamilton just feel like that, a little bit more of a step up than it used to be.
100%. Time is not our friend, but last thing here, take me out on the road, man. I referenced off the top,
Yes.
your show used to be called the All 60 CHL Podcast. Now All 61, soon to be All 62 as the league expands, but they're always popping off new buildings as well. One of the last times you were on here, it was because you had completed the All 60 journey.
Yes.
But it's constantly evolving. I'm just curious, over the last year or over the next coming year, like what have you seen that was new and interesting? What's coming up? What is still on the bucket list of things you want to see? Take us out on the road with you here, man. Where you been?
Yeah, well, when I created All 60 a CHL podcast 2 years ago, I thought, the CHL's been 60 teams for pretty much 20 years now. So,
What could
I
go
think that's
wrong?
a safe bet. Yeah, and then within the first season, let's add a new expansion team out in Penticton, and more coming possibly. And thankfully, this season coming, it's still 61 teams for now, but there's, the plan is to have Chilliwack, BC up and running for fall of 2027. And then, of course, everything there's rumors constantly of the OHL and the AHL, QMJHL expanding. So many HLs out there, it makes my head spin. And, since I was on the show, and I originally completed All 60 in February 2025 in Victoria, BC. And obviously, since then, I had to go back out to BC to do a game in Penticton. But of course, then the Acadie Bathurst Teton, they moved to St. John's, Newfoundland. So I had to go there as well to recomplete it. So looks like this coming season,
It's going to be a bit of a game of whack-a-mole here, I think, as teams keep getting new buildings and shuffling around.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier
I already covered you, goddammit.
Yeah. Well, and there are four. There are three teams in the OHL right now with new buildings under construction in Ottawa, Brantford, and Sudbury. Plus, Peterborough's looking very closely at getting a new building soon. And
As they have been
Vancouver,
for the last 30 years.
yeah, exactly. The Vancouver Giants, they've already announced apparently they're playing in Langley at a very appropriately sized building. It's been going well for them in Langley the last decade, but now apparently a new 10,000 seats going to get built in Surrey, and the Giants have already said we're moving there in 2031. So lots of stuff happening with the CHL. The Calgary new Flames building is going to be open in a year. That means the Hitmen are moving right along with them. So, but other than that, I don't have too much on the docket this coming season because my Guelph Storm are hosting the Memorial Cup, and they're already putting themselves together a hell of a roster here. I am all in with the Storm this year. I cannibalize some of my Guelph Storm games so that I can go on these road trips to games that don't involve the Storm, and I can see new arenas and new places. But with no new CHL stuff happening this season, it kind of works out nicely. I'm dedicating most of my season to the Storm and going out on their road trips trips and doing stuff I've done already, but wanting to watch this team in action because come next year we're probably going to suck really bad. So, but not to say there isn't stuff on the horizon here. This coming fall, actually, I'm making a pretty big leap for the first time in my life. I'm heading over across the pond, going to Europe for some hockey, and the original plan actually was to do Germany and do a lot of games in their DEL Pro League, and then some things on my house fell apart this summer, and
changed the budget a little.
He changed the budget a lot. They use the euro in Germany, and that's so. Credit to my pal Kevin Jordan, who has been on your show before as well. Who's the OHL Arena Guide. Check out OHLArenaGuide.com, and he has corresponding sites for the Q and the Dub as well. He's going on this trip with me, and it was his idea. Let's pivot, and we're actually going to go to Czechia for about 10, or he's almost there for 2 weeks. Him and his wife are going to be there a little bit longer than me, but I'll be there for a good 10 or 11 days. From October 1st to the 11th, I'm going to be there and going to get about 7 hockey games in, and I'm going to have a couple days solo in Prague to check that city out. And there's a lot of we're going to be at the Ivan Halinka rink for one of these games, which just looks fantastic. As a guy who loves unique arenas, the unique arenas are going away a lot more in North America.
They're becoming very cookie cutter here.
Yeah, that's the term we've always used: cookie cutter or clone, right?
Yeah.
Like for Oshawa has a fantastic junior facility, and they're actually about to put $50 million into it to expand the capacity.
He's only 20 years old. Here's another 50 mil.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we would consider Oshawa a cookie cutter because
100%.
it's kind of that same. It's that single bowl with the concourse that runs around the top. It's tried and tested. It's true.
That's perfectly fine. But there's nothing exciting about it.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
Yeah.
But there's also nothing interesting about it. Yeah.
No, and unless you kind of go over the top with, you have to be the best at that to make it interesting enough. And I would consider Oshawa one of the very good ones, and probably getting better. But
I think we made the top 10
barns.
in your list there when you did it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think they're flirting with the top 10. I don't, offhand.
All right,
I think they're kind
I just
of
remember them being high enough where I didn't have to get pissed at you.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't down at the bottom, and some people going, "What the hell?" Actually, I did manage to bring it up here really quick, and they are actually banging number 10. So there you go.
There you go.
Oshawa cracking the top 10.
Top 10. The dirty schwa.
And maybe that'll rise up in my rankings as they get the new renovations going. But yeah, I love going to old barns because they're unique, and of course I try and put an emphasis on getting to them first because who knows how long they have left in this world.
Yep.
But yeah, and of course with everything going on in the state, when I finished the CHL, it was like, well, let's start doing the NHL, let's start doing the AHL. I've done a whole bunch of ECHL stuff, college, and that's becoming a lot more of an attractive option now with the quality of that hockey getting a lot better. I went to a game in Michigan at Yost, 13, 14 years ago, and it was a fantastic atmosphere and an experience, and then it was just like, oh, the hockey is kind of so, and that was when, and hey, look, I'm not trying to shit on the NCAA product. I could have just gotten an off night, right? Sure. There's plenty. I've seen plenty of shitty games in the OHL over the years, but and this was at a time when Jacob Trouba was playing for the Michigan Wolverines.
Oh man,
and
this was a minute ago.
Yeah, this was a while ago. I did recently, just because the arena was closing a couple of years ago. I was down in Boston, and we got to a game at Matthews Arena, which hosts Northeastern University.
Okay.
And that arena just got torn
believe,
down.
If I'm not mistaken, our friend Angela Thompson's niece is playing down there, or was playing at Northeastern. I don't know if that's still the same building, but yeah.
No, they did tear. When we went in November of 2024, that was supposed to be the final season.
Okay.
They managed to extend it a little more. They played the first half of last season there before moving out, and it was promptly torn down in January last year, or this year, I should say. Sorry. And it's gone now. It was over 100 years old. It was a fantastic barn to watch a game in. But again, I thought the hockey lacked a lot. Now that you're getting a lot more CHL guys and NCAA LA. I'm looking forward to getting out there maybe. But of course, right now, the U.S. is not the most attractive option for traveling. So that's what kind of made Europe, it's like that thing that kicked my ass a little bit. I've never been the best flyer in the world. And, thinking of getting on a plane for 8 hours used to be hell for me. But as I've traveled more, and I'm more used to flying and it doesn't bother me as much anymore, it's like, and this U.S. thing, it's like, man, let's go to Europe. Let's do it. And, as much as my house tried to make that not happen for me, it is happening. The flight has been purchased. We're going to Czechia this fall. And
so I'm going to ask you to make a promise to TCA right now. While you are in Czechia, you will try at least one Czech Pilsner.
Oh, for sure.
There you go.
I'll definitely do that.
You will report back to us. You'll let us know what you thought of.
I will take pictures, or else it didn't happen.
This is it. And I'm not a big guy for Italian Pilsners. They're fine. German Pilsners are also okay. That's a step up. But a Czech Pilsner, that is top of the line Pilsner. So for TCA.
Well, and I will say for my history on this show, I'm not really the beer guy. I've never been into beer. When I came to the studio years ago, when I was at the TCA studio, you were kind enough to provide me with a lot of rum and Coke and a night on
I'm not opposed
on the couch.
to that either.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say the last couple of years, I haven't gotten in any craft beer.
Okay.
But I'm starting to dip my toe in the water a little bit. I went
if you are in Czechia.
Yes,
there's just no way
it's one
around
of those. I am definitely that guy who's like, I'm here, I got to try it, and if I don't like it, then I won't do it again.
That's right.
I'll give it a shot, and I've been trying some beers lately. I still can't say I like it anymore, but I will say I've managed to finish beers. Like it used to be, I'd have like one sip.
This is
and it's like, oh, I can't do this, and then
baby steps. It's progress.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting there. So maybe one of these days on an episode of TCA, I'll actually have. First of all, we'll be able to record when I'm not going to work right after, and have people's lives in my hand, and then maybe I'll also be able to drink a beer and instead of like a rum and Coke or something.
With all that said, as is always the case on these start of the week episodes of the show, plenty left on the cutting room floor, but the tangents that you and I both go on are part of the fun. So we'll leave it where it is, man.
All over the place when I'm on the show,
that's
how
we like it.
I'm a little all over the place in the city all day, and
as long as you're not all over the place
travels.
when you're doing your job. As long as
I wouldn't have one otherwise.
No.
So.
We will wrap it up here, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Let people know where they can find the show, where they can find your socials.
Yeah, absolutely. Just while the show is called All 61 a CHL Podcast, you could look up All 60 CHL Pod. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and I have a website, all60chlpod.com. I've got arena reviews of every arena I've seen hockey games in. I've got the countdown for the CHL. Good place to check all that out.
Where
so
you can find Oshawa
I would
in the
appreciate
top 10.
it. Yes, I right at the very top, I have a link right to the CHL Arena rankings. I ranked them 61-1. You can laugh at the losers and praise the winners.
Speaking of laughing at the losers, we'll allow Stoughton to come in here on Wednesday to clean up the mess that Steve and I have made talking about these Blue Jays trades. And on Friday...
while we've been on, I'm sorry to cut you off there. Another trade going down here. Jeff Passan saying the Toronto Blue Jays are acquiring utility man Josh Smith from the Texas Rangers. So
sure, that's what we need, more utility guys.
Hey, I'm just saying we snuck one more trade in there before we got off the air.
We are trade breakers here on TCA, if nothing else.
Yeah. We've got Bob
we'll let
McKenzie in a little
tell
bit.
us about, what did you say his name? Josh Smith? Or
it's really the most.
Never heard of this guy before in my life.
Exactly. It's just and it's the real Jeff Passan. It wasn't like Jeff _66 Passan or something like that.
He doesn't have the handle, the real Jeff Passan one.
Yeah. But hey, I just figured, I took one last look at Twitter.
Man. Yeah,
sliding it in. So who knows?
And on Friday, Joshua O'Connor, if you want to talk about tangents, stick around for that one. Part 1 of at least 2, maybe 3. We'll see how that editing job goes. Thank you so much for listening to this one. Hope you all had a fantastic long weekend and a great week ahead. We'll see you on the next episode of Tall Can Audio.
It's TCA Summer Session.